Hello, and welcome to the Lawyers in the Classroom program interview series. I'm Tiffany Watson, Director of the Edward J. Lewis Lawyers in the Classroom program. Today, we'll be speaking with middle grade teacher, Miss Jenny DeLessio-Parson from McCutcheon Elementary. Thank you so much for joining us, Miss Parson.
Yep, happy to be here. So when I was teaching fifth grade, I had the opportunity to be part of the Action-Based Communities program through the Constitutional Rights Foundation, and I really liked the kind of real-world experiences that my students got to have through the program. So when I transitioned to teach middle school social studies, and especially knowing that as part of the eighth grade requirements for CPS, students take a civics course, this seemed like it just was a really nice fit. Where students would get to have real life interactions with lawyers, get to ask them questions about things that maybe we didn't cover in class, and to see the way that all of the content that we are covering in class plays out in real life. So we've done a couple. The eighth grade class, they did like the history of voting rights, and then they also did free speech versus hate speech. And we chose those lessons because they really kind of directly aligned with the civics curriculum that we have just finished in class, and specifically the hate speech versus free speech. Students were really invested in that topic and wanted to know more about what rights were protected and what weren't. The seventh and the sixth graders have done kind of more intro type lessons that have really, the seventh graders did like electronic devices in the classroom, and the sixth graders did vehicles in the park or no vehicles in the park. And so they really are kind of just getting the sense that, yes, we have rights, but also that those rights can be limited depending on different contexts and different situations. And that's kind of, I just want them to have that basic understanding as they get older and then as they get into eighth grade for civics. A couple of things. I think that there's always a benefit for students to see different types of professions that are out there and to get to ask direct questions to people in those professions. So I think in general, it's just nice for students to see attorneys and see what that job is like. I think for my eighth graders, it was a really kind of validating experience because they had learned so much in their civics class that being able to talk to lawyers with that knowledge and that vocabulary that they have, I think was affirming of like, oh, I really do understand kind of constitutional rights better than maybe I thought I did. I think a lot of eighth graders had that reaction. And then sixth and seventh graders, it was just, I think, a fun way for them to realize that these types of topics are very relevant and very accessible to their real life. And so, yeah, I think that they've all benefited from the program. I have I have many eighth graders that are high energy, but I'm thinking of one eighth grader in particular who, during the eighth grade lesson on free speech versus hate speech, the students were crafting arguments for why Unite the Right, like a white supremacist organization, should be allowed to protest or gather in a park, or why they shouldn't. And so they were kind of developing those arguments and having that debate. And some students were thinking about what rules could be put in place to make this rally safer. And this particular eighth grader was looking at this list of rules, which were things like limiting what that participation would look like. And he really started to get into, well, but if you limit the number of people that are participating, aren't you limiting this right that's afforded in the Bill of Rights? Or aren't you limiting that one if you say they can't bring certain things? And so watching this student really start to apply the understanding that there's always kind of a balance between what rights we have and how they're limited, and him asking questions and trying to really think about how that played out in real life was a highlight because he was very invested in figuring out what was protected and what wasn't.
So thank you so very much, Ms. DeLessio-Parson, for sharing your thoughts, your experiences, and being a part of the Lawyers in the Classroom program. We're so very grateful. To learn more about the Lawyers in the Classroom program, please go to www.chicagobar/LIC/chicagobar/LIC. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me.